ध्यायेत् चित्त सरोजस्थां सुखासीनां कृपामयीं प्रसन्नवदनां देवीं द्विभुजां स्थिरलोचनाम् आलुलायितकेशार्ध वक्षस्थलविमण्डितां श्वेतवस्त्रावृतार्धाङ्गां हेमालङ्कारभूषिताम् स्वक्रोडन्यस्तहस्तां च ज्ञानभक्तिप्रदायिनीं शुभ्रां ज्योतिर्मयीं जीव पापसन्तापहारिणीं रामकृष्णगतप्राणां तन्नाम श्रवणप्रियां तद्भावरञ्जिताकारां जगन्मातृस्वरूपिणीं जानकी राधिका रूप धारिणीं सर्वमङ्गलां चिन्मयीं वरदां नित्यां शारदां मोक्षदायिनीं. So, Guru, may please read the translation of the whole thing. Let us meditate on Holy Mother. Take this one. Let us meditate on Holy Mother.
Let us meditate on Holy Mother, seated in the lotus of the heart, sitting cross-legged, the embodiment of compassion, with smiling face, the two-armed goddess with steady gaze. Her disheveled hair adorning half of upper body and her white cloth covering the other half, adorned with bangles of gold. Her hands folded in her lap, offering knowledge and devotion, pure and luminous, removing the suffering of the sins of mortals. Her heart merged in Sri Ramakrishna, delighting in hearing his name. Her very being died in the thought of him, the mother of the universe, who had previously come in the form of Sita and Radha, who is auspicious to all, and embodiment of pure consciousness, the grantor of boons, eternal, the divine mother, Saraswati, the bestower of liberation.
So every year we try to, as all of you know, we try to have a glimpse of the divine life of Holy Mother through different perspectives. So today we will approach a little different attitude. We will see in the historical perspective, in India especially, and of course for the whole world, why did the divine energy, the divine mother, incarnate at this time? This time means the time which she had come. So of course it is a wonderful analysis by our revered Gambhiranandji Maharaj, who most of you know was also one of the presidents of our order. So I will read from his introduction to the life of Holy Mother. He was one of the first to write the detailed life of Holy Mother. In the middle of the last century, the womanhood of India was faced with a tremendous problem. India then was being swept off her feet by foreign ideals. A craze for imitating the West set in at the cost of indigenous values. The plan of educational reform envisaged in the dispatch of Sir Charles Wood, dating 19 July 1854, gave only a vague indication of the kind of training that Indian women would get. So, this dispatch of Sir Charles Wood, of course, at that time India was under the rule of the British. So, this dispatch was often called the Magna Carta of English education in India, and it laid down the broad framework for modern education under British rule. It would be naturally as they liked. But its plan for women's education was extremely vague, almost an afterthought. It mentioned practically nothing. So that is why Gambhirananji says that it gave only a vague indication, nothing was told practically. Then he continues, true it is that India was not entirely wrong in welcoming foreign ideals and practices. On the contrary, it is quite in keeping with Indian tradition to enrich her life by assimilating foreign ideas while still retaining her own individuality. So it is not that India just rejects everything just because it is coming from outside. No. We accept, but we also maintain our own ideals. There is need for energizing our womanhood by drawing a little on foreign sources in order to make national life more vigorous and fruitful. But at the same time, the West also learns something of our veneration for motherhood, so that Western civilization may have a stronger spiritual basis. So we were saying that India is always ready to accept other ideals also, but it does not want to lose its own tradition, which is veneration for motherhood. So, under foreign rule, Britishers tried to impose upon us the Western ideals in totality, but though each civilization has much to learn from another, it will spell disaster if the basic distinctions are ignored. India does not have to become westernized. The Western world does not have to become orientalized. But the thing is, each one should try to take the good features of one another. For though women are honored everywhere, that honor very often appears in the form of chivalry and appreciation of feminine charms in the Western world. But India eulogizes chastity and motherhood, since the ideal aimed at is spiritual freedom, which has for its foundation absolute self-control. Our ideal specimens of womanhood are Sita, Savitri and Damayanti. Now, there is an evident conflict between the Western ideal and the Oriental ideal. And future world civilizations have either to choose sides or seek a rational rapprochement. Now the problem has assumed an urgency which it never had 100 years ago. And yet, the forces governing the destiny of India foresaw that unless Indian culture was saved from the deluge of Western ideas, the world would have no sure foundation on which the future Eastern and Western social edifices could be erected, while allowing for individual differences. So, if one ideal was to completely overcome the other one, the future social edifice means structure, will not be based on both Eastern and Western ideals, because one will completely take over another. That is never good. So he says, yes, exchange of ideas are welcome, but individual differences have to be maintained. It is not that the West will have to be completely orientalized or the India will have to be completely westernized. No, that is not the goal. So there was need for providing a dependable model. When Sarada Devi came, this was the main cause. One model has to be there, because without a role model, we don't know what to do, what not to do, what is the guide. So this model came because there was the need for what? To combine all these three. One, Guru. Second, Mother. And third, Goddess, deity. So these had to be combined in one figure, so that all womanhood of India, without exception, could derive their inspiration from that one role model according to Indian culture. India cannot have a westernized role model. So this was the need of the age, to combine in one figure the ideal Guru, the ideal Mother, and the ideal divinity. Of course, divinity can only be ideal, from which all could draw the necessary inspiration. Now, considered from all points of view, this task of resuscitating and perfecting the Indian ideal could be accomplished. Now it is very difficult. Oh my God, the Zoom has stopped now. Okay, please let me know if you cannot hear properly again. So this is very difficult, to be the ideal Guru, to be the ideal Mother and ideal Goddess also, the deity also, which we can worship. This is practically impossible to achieve.
You're on mute at the moment.
But I don't know why this suddenly is happening. Now it is okay?
Yes, thank you.
So no ordinary person could fulfill this. So considered from all points of view, this task of perfecting the Indian ideal could be accomplished by none other than the Mother of the Universe herself. For in the middle of the last century, no other force could succeed in making India conscious of her great destiny. Because it was a ruled country, who will listen? If India has to say something, you fellows, you yourself are slaves. Who will listen to you? So only the force of divine power could make the world listen to the Indian ideals at that time. That is why when Swamiji spoke, they listened, because it was a divine power which was working through him. So no other force could make India conscious of her grand destiny and the world cognizant of her revitalizing message. So this is the age-old, and this has not happened for the first time. It is not that the first time India has gone down and again it has risen. It is not that. Actually, this happens with every civilization, Swami Vivekananda says. But with other civilizations, when they go down, they never come up many times. They cannot. But India, if it goes down, it will always rise again. Because that is the power of the Sanatana Dharma, the religion based upon eternal principles. So this keeps on happening. Please come. Have a seat. So this is the age-old tradition of India's spiritual ministry. Truly, God's advent has been strictly in proportion to the moral degradation during the period beginning from the 1850s and ending with the 1920s. So it had gone down like anything. You cannot deny the fact. And naturally, the more the downfall, the greater of degree of downfall, the greater power has to come to raise the civilization. So the greater the degradation, the greater is the divine power's response to the challenge of the times. So the new advances of world civilization will commence with the worship of the Guru, Mother and Goddess as manifested in the recent past. You can please come in. So Shri Krishna hints in the Gita that though God descends to the human world for the general good, men, through the poverty of their intellect, fail to gauge his real stature. God comes as man, nobody recognizes that he is God. They think that he is an ordinary person. So they cannot recognize divinity. And therefore God remains under his assumed mundane limitations. And thus, paradoxically enough, the conditions of divine descent were frustrating his gracious intention. But this drawback is there, that God will come, but people won't recognize him. People won't recognize his great message. Most of the people like us, ordinary people. So, this is the drawback of God coming. He may not be recognized. But the thing is, there is no alternative. Notwithstanding this drawback, it is only through these human bodies that God can reveal to erring and suffering humanity the means by which life can be made divine. If it doesn't come in human body, who will tell us in our language? In the Puranas there is mention, Varaha Avatar and all these things. But Varaha Avatar could not communicate with human beings. So we need a human being who speaks our language. That is the thing. So only God, when he comes in a human form, can guide humanity, show them how life can be made divine, which actually it is supposed to be. For human beings are generally sunk in their petty selfish pursuits. So there is no other method for reinvigorating them for higher achievements. Who will show the way? Only God. Then when he sets up the tradition, then it may carry on for hundreds of years, because he does not come alone. He comes with his whole bandwagon. So they remain till maybe 100 years more. Then again the degeneration comes. Then again it rises. That is the way it is going on, and it will go on. So this transmission of fresh vigor and the communication of revitalizing power may follow different channels. It may happen in different ways. In some cases, the highest perfection of human ideals may be visibly demonstrated, or they may be made more sublime and enduring through achievements of personal life or through grandeur of instruction. So there are two ways. One is a person will remain sort of hidden. And in another manifestation, there will be a grand manifestation of power. The whole world will sit up and take notice. So in Swami Vivekananda's case, what happened? One sentence and the whole parliament rose up. That was the grand manifestation. He had said, I will fall like a bombshell. He himself had said later upon Indian society. So that was the grand manifestation. But there may be other ways also. There may be other ways means somebody may remain hidden from public view in their lifetime. Only later people may realize. In other cases, new paths may be opened up by divine decree, while in others, human hearts may be more powerfully attracted towards cherished traditional human norms through charming divine disports. While all this is true, we must not jump to the conclusion that the mission of an incarnation is confined to a mere heightening of sublimity or the establishment of fresh ideals or the attraction of human hearts. Just to appear sublime or just to establish some new ideals or to attract attract other people. So incarnation coming is not confined to these things. It has a much greater impact. For though we may try to understand the incarnation's contribution analytically, with our own minds, we have to try to understand because we have no other instrument. But when we try to understand, we should not think that we have succeeded in understanding the whole thing. It is not possible. We have to remember that the divine play of the incarnation, it is beyond human capacity to comprehend fully or formulate in words the significance of his or her descent. Because, why? What is the reason? Because a human being is very limited. First of all, very, very few human beings experience spiritual moods in their whole lifetime. 99.9% don't even feel the need. So no question of anything spiritual. It is all material. Maybe one person in a million may experience spiritual mood. But that also will be very limited. One kind of mood. And if he is very lucky, he will gain perfection in that one kind of mood. That person the world worships as a big saint. Even if he can gain perfection by one spiritual mood. And what happens when divinity incarnates? The divinity, God or goddess, is sometimes the embodiment of all kinds of spiritual moods. In one body, in one mind, he embodies all ideals, all spiritual ideals. And this was specially done in the case of Sri Ram Krishna. So naturally, ordinary persons like us who cannot even fathom what a spiritual mood is, how can they have any understanding of infinite spiritual moods? It is impossible. So for us to have any understanding is practically impossible. But still, there is no other way of improving ourselves except by studying these lives and being guided by them. So besides, a power that is released for ages cannot be assessed by contemporary history. This is another problem. How long will a person live? 70, 80, 90? That is a very short period. If you take the whole history of the world, history of a civilization, that is a very short period. Civilization appear, it may take a few hundred years. Then again the decline may again take a few hundred years. So in a short lifetime of a human being with limited intelligence, with no spiritual capacity, to gauge the enormity of the incarnation's power his mission is next to impossible. Unless he is somebody like an incarnation, like our Vivekananda and all those things. So, but we have no other way. With our limited intellect, we have to try, study, whatever analysis we can do and be guided. That is the most important. So he says, nevertheless, we accept these three standards as a basis for an intellectual apprehension of the life of incarnation. Because it is only through our mind we can understand. We have no other instrument. So even though we are incompetent, we have to try to do what we can. So now he specifically, this is the general, we have seen the general background. Now he comes specifically to the life of Holy Mother. So three standards he mentions, if for an intellectual apprehension of the life of Holy Mother, through which we can understand. So here in this extraordinary life, what do we see? First, the qualities of motherhood in their superhuman perfection. Superhuman. No ordinary person can manifest that. And we shall come to know how they acted in the present age. The superhuman manifestation of motherhood, how it acted in the present age for evolving new spiritual values. Secondly, we also see how in our life the feminine virtues consequent on such positions in the family as daughter, sister, wife or matron reached their ideal states. So here there is no limitation. She has exemplified motherhood in superhuman perfection. But what about the other people who want to understand the other ideals also? How to be a perfect daughter, how to be a perfect sister. So for them, she had also exemplified these feminine virtues. Right. And above all, how her pristine purity was itself an inspiration to others. So all these we see here. So he says, naturally we are reading some portions also. After this he says, the life we are dealing with here is extraordinary and must be evaluated accordingly. So the Holy Mother does not belong to that class of dazzling personalities who suddenly emerge in contemporary history and after assuming superhuman proportion for a while, they vanish forever. Most of the personalities are like that. Those who are not spiritual, they come, they will create waves in whatever field. Then they will go. So it is something which dazzles, but only for a short time. So she was not like that. Her personality was not like that. Nor did it belong to that category of people who through bustling activity, flaming oratory, or the clatter of arms imperil human civilization and blacken history forever. All these we say, no, this is the Alexander the Great. So he was great, how? Only in the eyes of Western ideals. He was not great according to the spiritual ideals. So naturally they imperil human civilization. They are the cause of hundreds and thousands of people either losing their lives or suffering for years and years. So needless to say, spiritual personalities don't belong to that category at all. Then where does Holy Mother belong? Which category? He says, she belongs to that galaxy of great characters who, by concretizing the human ideals in their lives, raise world civilization to a higher level. They raise the civilization of the whole world, and whose influence, though seemingly inconsiderable to their contemporaries, so those who lived during Sri Ramakrishna's and Holy Mother's life, during time, many people, most of them could not recognize. He had lived in Dakshineshwar so many years. How many people came to him? How many people recognized him? Very, very few. So though the people who are their contemporaries, they may not recognize them, but afterwards their power is felt. So their influence lasts longer, much longer than ordinary worldly achievements, and expands forever. So we still remember Jesus Christ after so many years. We still remember Buddha after thousands of years. So they can never be completely forgotten. That is what he says. So this is the absolutely incredible analysis by revered Maharaj. And just we will end this portion by quoting another extraordinary feature of her life, which is rarely seen. What is that? This life is extraordinary because also it was lived so silently and unostentatiously that its very simplicity was bewildering. That is the special feature. Ordinary, just like an ordinary person. We will see when in Swami Premananda's letter, we will see this thing explained. Yet the depths of its richness seemed unfathomable even to those who were universally respected for their spiritual greatness. So even the other disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, who were all spiritual giants, to them Swami Vivekananda wrote, "You also have not understood Holy Mother." That is the surprising thing. So even these great spiritual people, to them also, her life seemed unfathomable. Because after all, God is God. No human being can understand God completely. Indeed, such a life defies analysis. There is no benchmark because they are above all ideals of perfection which we can imagine. They are even far above that. So how can we understand even a little? We cannot. And therefore, it is almost impossible to portray it completely. But whatever guidance we have, whatever the other great souls have said about her, even if we understand a little, you need not, Sri Ramakrishna says, to satisfy your thirst, you need not drink the whole ocean. You just have to satisfy your thirst. A few glasses is sufficient for us. So, we will again have our narrations, but of course, as we always do, in between songs.